Hello and welcome once again to Almanac North. Well, after a stormy start to the week, Julie, it looks like conditions are pretty good for the air show this week.
That's right. They've got blue skies ahead. Should be a great weekend for it. Lots of people coming to town and lots of activity.
I sat on the deck this afternoon watching them practice. That was fun.
Excellent.
Yeah,
it should be fun.
Should be a great weekend. We'll have more on that later.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Denny. When Congressman Rick Nolan announced he was not running for re-election, it surprised a lot of people. A large group of Democrats tossed their names in to replace him, and ultimately, no one gained the party endorsement. That leaves a wide-open primary race to become the DFL candidate in the 8th District. And one of the candidates is Kirsten Kennedy, the mayor of North Branch, who is running in the DFL primary. And welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah, now for those who may not be familiar with you, it's an awfully big district. Share a little bit about your background and what made you decide to jump in the race for Congress.
I am a single mom of 5. I am in my 2nd term as mayor from the city of North Branch, so I'm in the most southern part of our district, 27,000 plus square miles. I was a stay-at-home mom, military family. Norwegian born, American raised, I say. My dad's a Norwegian immigrant. And I started college at 45 after a divorce. I had to decide how I'm going to take care of my children, and college seemed to be the best bet. I started at Anoka Ramsey Community College and finished my master's here in Duluth at UMD, a master's in advocacy and political leadership. I became a community organizer, working with our police department, saving our police department, working with senior issues, and I won in a very conservative district as a progressive single mom, which is rare, and we've really worked at turning North Branch around and then also enhancing our region. And so that's what I do. And as far as this race, I work a lot with Rick Nolan, and he's helped me a lot on transportation issues, when it's come to economic development for our region or for senior issues. And he called and asked if I would attend the State of the Union with him. And I want you to know it was a tough decision because I was going out to see my oldest daughter in Salt Lake, and I didn't want to change my flight. And so he called a second time and I said, okay, I'll come. And he goes, it'll be great. I'll just show you around. So I just thought we were going to go to the State of the Union. I met a lot of dreamers. I met John Lewis, who is someone who I've admired my entire life. And we had a break where we shared a meal together, and he let me know that what he was planning to do, and asked if I would consider running. And I asked if I could have 2 years to think about it.
A huge issue here in the northern half of the district is expanded mining. What's your stand on expanded mining?
So here's where I am on mining. I know copper nickel mining is separated from the taconite. I understand that it is an economic development issue. I stand by. I know people have said, she said she doesn't want to take food off of people's table. I'm about the basics. So if we are going to move to a different economy, then we have to talk about that. What's our next step? If mining isn't sustainable, or if mines come in and then they leave, this is how I feel. If a mining company comes in, you're taking something from me or my district or a community, you better be giving something back. I believe tribal sovereignty and the First Nations have a right to decide what happens on their land. And I disagreed with the land swap that Senator Smith put through, and I disagreed with it on a couple of levels. I feel like if a bill is strong, it should stand up to scrutiny and debate in the light. And if it has to be tacked onto something where it takes away that, then I believe it takes away the transparency and the public's ability to participate in the process. And so at our base, I say, if it makes it through that, which right now it's in the courts and it could be in the courts a long time, then we better make sure we get it right. And I'm not sure right now that we're getting it right.
This part of the state has a pretty significant hunting culture.
They do.
Second Amendment rights have been on the front burner a lot with some recent school shootings and other shootings in our society. You've called for what you call common sense gun safety reforms. What do those look like?
So this is what it looks like. As a mayor, we had a young man arrested that made threats against the school. And so it really hit home. I have 5 kids. My youngest is a freshman in North Branch High School. All the rest have graduated. I have grown up in a huge hunting family. We always get venison beef jerky for Christmas. We're serious about our venison. I am also part of Moms Demand Action, and what I mean by that is that the Dickey Amendment, which Dickey wished he would not have put forth, caused public health not to be able to look at deaths by guns. So we look at deaths by car accidents. We look at cancer deaths. Reversing the Dickey Amendment would give us the first step to get some real data and have some honest discussions about policy, but I do not believe we need weapons of war on our streets. I think it is disingenuous to say, let's strengthen our schools and make them stronger, give guns to people, teach elementary school students, which is part of the teachings, to throw rocks or stab them with a fork. It's not going to happen. When you have high magazine machine guns that can fire hundreds of rounds within minutes, no one's going to make it from that. And so I think we just have to be honest and say, I don't want to take anyone's guns. What I want to do is make it safe for our students to go and learn. They should not be afraid to go to school. And frankly, there are times when I get nervous. After that threat was made, I thought about Abraham when he said, I don't want to go. I said, I'm the mayor. You have to go tomorrow. And he said, Mom, I don't want to go. And guess what? I didn't make him go. So I think we can change some things right now that can have bipartisan support, but we also have to be honest about the money the NRA puts in to our
Another
system.
issue is health care, and on your website, you say health care is a right. Unwrap that a little bit.
So it is not a constitutional right, health care. This is what I believe. I believe there are certain things people need to go about their lives of dignity, to have dignity. Health care is one of those issues for me, which means if I can't go to the doctor or I can't get treatment, or if my child has diabetes and they can't afford the medication, then they don't really get an opportunity to live a good, healthy life with dignity. I also understand that we hear people say all the time, I want single-payer health care tomorrow. We had a Democratic president, Senate, and House that did not agree to pass that. So what I say is we have to take it one step at a time and be pragmatic. So I would argue that we should expand Medicare, call it Medicare E, Medicare for everyone, and that would cover so that we had no one uninsured. But I also believe that we have to take the best parts of the ACA and strengthen them rather than just throwing everything out. Healthcare is so complex and difficult, but I do agree that we have enough if we say our budget in the United States reflects our values to make sure that people get what they need for basic health care, and right now that's not happening.
Mm-hmm. Immigration has been another hot button issue with a lot of families being split up at the Mexican border. Where do you stand on border enforcement? I understand that you have been among those calling for the Immigration and Customs Enforcement to be shut down, perhaps.
Right, so people hear that and they say she's a radical. I might be this much of a radical, I want you to know. Okay, I am maybe this much of a radical. But when I say that to abolish ICE, I'm not saying having no enforcement. ICE was started after 9/11. People were scared. We got a lot of information that was not factual after 9/11, and we made a lot of hot button decisions on emotions. I, as a human being, am distraught that we have tender age care centers from infants to 5-year-olds in without any parent, cannot be touched, the lights on are all night, and we can't even put them back with their families because records have disappeared or been destroyed. That's not who we are as a nation. What I say about ICE is they have a lot of money that they don't have to really defend or say where it's going. If you have taken children away from their parents and there is a judge saying, I want them put back together in 20 days, and then someone saying, you know what, we don't know where they are, then we have a problem, because guess what? We don't lose kids anywhere else in our system.
Another issue I want to touch on, you oppose right-to-work laws. Why?
I do.
Why?
Because workers' rights to me are human rights, and what I mean by that is that people should not have to work 3 jobs, unsafe conditions, and not be able to have a home, have food, have the basics they need to go about their lives. And so right-to-work laws for me mean right to work for less, right to work without protections, and it is not economically sound or sustainable when we are really the only nation that pushes that. Scandinavian nations, labor is at the table. It's just part of their culture. And so I would argue that instead of demeaning the unions and busting them, that we actually work to strengthen them.
Mm-hmm. No DFL endorsed candidate, as we mentioned, going
That
into
is
the
correct.
primary. I think it's good to let voters decide in a primary rather than have the endorsement.
I do. I do. This was, although I'm a mayor, it was my first time ever going to a convention. I have voted Democrat my entire life. However, I also understand and was raised that you work across aisles, and when it comes to going to vote, you vote for the best leader. I know that's not how it always is now. And so I think primaries are great, and I think that we should have publicly funded elections in a 6-month election cycle, and then candidates can work from I'm a bottom-up candidate. I am not someone that has huge financing behind him or has great name recognition or has been anointed as someone. I am a non-traditional candidate, and I always say I'm working from the bottom up.
All right, Kirsten Kennedy, congressional candidate, thank you for coming in and visiting with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Another issue tonight, what will the transportation needs of our region look like 25 years from now? What can be done to improve transportation for everyone? Well, those are some of the questions being asked as the Duluth Superior Metropolitan Interstate Council works to update its long-range transportation plan. You can help formulate that plan by taking part in an online survey open right now. And here to talk about the survey and more is Mike Wenholz, Senior Transportation Planner with the MIC. Mike, thank you so much for being here. The plan is called Sustainable Choices 2045. Why is it important to plan so far in advance?
Well, there's transportation, for one thing, is a very expensive endeavor. It's not cheap, and it has it's concrete. It's steel, it's things that are going to last a while. And so we want to plan to make sure that what gets put in place is what the community needs, what the community wants, but also effectively and safely moves the people and the goods of this area and through this area.
So how would you define then sustainable choices?
Well, sustainable choices, we're using that term. It's really three things. It's financially sustainable, it's socially sustainable, and it's environmentally sustainable. And there are aspects of all three of those that are very important and really weave into the fabric of the community and the business climate.
How sustainable is our current transportation system in the Twin Ports?
Ooh, that's a good question. How sustainable? I think there's, here's a couple of things. So we're in a situation where our community, unlike many communities, has had a fairly stagnant population. And so, it's an aging population. And I think they're going to show some of these graphics on here of some of this. But that leads to a few things that gets at your question, which is, one, there's a shrinking tax base. So there's part of the sustainability. And secondly, as we age, we have different mobility needs. We have different needs of the transportation system as a whole. And so we need to address those things, and that's what we're asking for. Yes, the top two graphics get at that. And then there's some other things along with these graphics. So a huge part of the sustainability issue and financially is that we have the cost the last 15 years have really skyrocketed. And with that, it's left our region to get what we call good pavement quality alone in our area. And the MIC, the Metropolitan Interstate Council, we cover an area that's on both sides of the river in Wisconsin and Minnesota, and we're looking at that as a whole. And so when we have a deficit just to get to good pavement status, that would be $1.2 billion. That's not sustainable. We can't tax ourselves out of that. So all these play a factor in what we're looking at.
The questions, Mike, in your survey deal with both short-range and long-range plans.
Yes.
Give us some examples. What are some of the short-range plans and long-range plans?
Okay. So the survey gets at a couple different things. One is that we're trying to have an idea of how do people move about our community, whether that's walking or biking or transit of some sort or cars. And probably for most people it's some combination of that to get around town. So that's one of the things we're trying to learn, because that'll set up a lot of the other questions. You know, if more people are trying to move, for example, by transit, are we providing those services at a level that meets that demand? And secondly, then because transportation is interwoven into everything in our community, how we move, how our goods and services or goods are moved around, so it affects the business, it affects our economy. How does our neighborhoods, are they safe? Are they places that people want to be because they're safe and because they can move around freely? So all of those are the types of questions we're getting at, and there's individual aspects of that we have in the survey, and we're asking people in the survey to really prioritize for them what's important to them, because we can't do all of them.
Mm-hmm. Transportation isn't something that's always on the minds of people, and some people might even, don't take offense, consider it a little bit nerdy. How do you get people to engage in a survey and really take part and take ownership and get excited about it?
Well, one is that we're trying to make these cases of some of the things I just said. As I came into this region and I heard some of those numbers, like, wow, that's a lot. You know, we can't just fix these things by finding another pot somewhere, because that's just not there. Now, and obviously it's a big issue in this area. We had the whole pothole, voted for to fix those. And so it is on people's minds in that respect. But also we've just, the approach has been, I've been meeting with all kinds of different groups, groups that represent people with disabilities, groups that represent education, groups, the Chamber of Commerce in Superior, I met with him. And just other organizations like that. We're going to be at Sidewalk Days. We're just trying to get the message out in some of these kind of key issues of what does this look like, because everybody, here's the deal, everybody uses the system. It's not just those who drive a car or not just those that bike, everybody uses it. Even if you're 10, you use the system to move from point A to point B. Is
railroad transportation part of the long-range plan?
It is, in the sense that railroad is a part of our infrastructure and things that we need to look at. A lot of the railroad is private, so it is considered in that sense. But we're comprehensive in looking at all the different aspects of our transportation
system. Are you
system.
expecting to hear, or are you asking questions concerning return of rail transportation between the Twin Ports and the Twin Cities?
Well, obviously that has been on the radar for a while, and that will be a part of the plan. It's the whole Northern Lights Express has been, my understanding, it's in a spot where it's ready. The planning part of it's all done. That's what I've heard from Minnesota DOT. It's just a matter of whether or not it's going to get funded. So that's where that is at. But yes, that would certainly be a part of the plan.
I took the survey.
Thank you.
I thought it was fun. Took about 10 minutes.
Yes.
Pretty easy. Designed to engage people.
Yes.
You know, in terms of how you put it together. How did you decide what areas to really focus on and how to make it accessible to people?
Well, thank you for your words on that, because we worked really hard to not make it a canned survey. There were a lot of canned surveys out there across the country, and we spent a long time to make sure it wasn't that. And we tried to be very specific to our needs. Again, the kind of the key facts I was stating earlier, that's not the case in many places. Many places have a population that's growing, and it's a different planning effort when you have that. We are looking at different needs and different ways to be sustainable. So we've tried to focus on that. We've tried to focus on things that we're federally mandated to update the survey every 5 years. And so we're trying to ask questions that we can repeatedly in the next survey build on and see what trends are. So that's a part of it. And certainly the interactive map part, we know we're getting lots of comments on that. And it's for those that haven't taken it, it's a great opportunity you can zoom right into an intersection if you want to in the area and go, I really like this, what they did here, or boy, this is really dangerous, or this segment of street is dangerous. And all throughout, one of the things that we did purposefully is that everywhere in that survey, as you probably noticed, you can add comments. So if we didn't cover something in the drop downs, you can add comments.
Mike, I wish we had more time. We don't. Mike Wenholz, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Now let's turn to the business news from our friends at Business North. A Minnesota administrative law judge has decided Minnesota Power has not shown the need for a proposed 250 megawatt power plant in Superior. As a result, the judge recommends the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission deny a plan for the utility to construct and co-own the Nemadji Trail Energy Center. The natural gas-powered plant was proposed last year by Minnesota Power and Dairyland Power Cooperative. Noting the judge's recommendation is contrary to the findings of the Department of Commerce, Minnesota Power executives said they would review the report.
The city of Grand Rapids is planning another run at a 1% local sales tax. The proceeds from the proposed tax would be used to fund an initiative known as Project Grand Rapids, which would make improvements to the city's civic center and other adjacent properties. The local tax must be approved by voters and will appear as a question on the fall general election ballot. If the city passes the ballot question, authority to collect the tax would then be sought from the state legislature.
Duluth's annual Sidewalk Days Festival takes place next Wednesday through Friday, July 11th to the 13th. More than 80 vendors are expected to participate in this year's event. The Downtown Farmers Market will open for the first time this year from 9 to 3 on Wednesday. During Sidewalk Days, Superior Street will be closed to traffic beginning at 8 a.m. between Lake Avenue and 3rd Avenue West. For a full calendar of events, visit the Greater Downtown Council website. And for more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
Now, if you have a comment on the show, call now. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send us an email to almanacnorth@wdsc.org. And visit the WDSC website for the latest on our program schedule. Also, news about your favorite PBS shows and upcoming events at the station. And Julie, as we talked about at the beginning of the program, looks like the weather is going to be absolutely great for this weekend's big air show at the Duluth Airport.
That is certainly a popular event, brings lots of people and lots of revenue into the area. And you know, you're a bit of an airplane fanatic, so I imagine you're interested in all.
I love everything that flies. Well, we're going to leave you tonight with some video from an air show media flight. Our photographer Ted Pellman had a chance to fly and shoot from the cockpit, while Thomas Soderberg shot his flight from the ground. For Julie and crew here at WDSC, I'm Dennis Anderson. Have a great weekend, everybody, and be kind.